My name is Kimberly Jackson, and I'm with the Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions, which, as we love to remind everyone, is the beautiful gift that Congressman Bill Young left us. This year, we are pivoting into a lot of different subject matter. And as we explore our economic impact and the surrounding programs that impact our economy, one of them, which does not seem like it would be on that cutting edge, is cybersecurity. And right now, we are honored to have with us Robert Shimberg, who is going to lend his expertise on what it's like to be an attorney in this field, how to explore issues in this area, and just a little bit of his wisdom. Robert, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Kimberly.
So first, I'd like to say, well, how did you get into this particular line of work as an attorney?
Sure. So the way I got into this line of work is actually interesting. One of my law partners contacted me about 12 or 13 years ago, and a client had what was a cybersecurity issue, and the lawyer had checked around to try to see if there was an attorney that could assist in the cybersecurity issue in the Tampa Bay area. They couldn't find anyone. And so he turned to me and he said, Robert, I know you're a former prosecutor. I know you've done a lot of compliance related work. Can you assist this client? And we were able to assist the client in a pretty complicated cybersecurity matter. Again, a number of years ago, I really enjoyed what I was doing. And so that kind of started me on the path of getting involved in more and more cybersecurity matters over the years when it was really a very early on in the field of cybersecurity law.
It's so interesting. So, for those people who are tuning in and have no idea what we're talking about right now, can you give some context on the basics of what a complaint like that looks like or how cybersecurity is defined in your world?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of different ways it's defined in this world. And the common feature is that somebody, an individual or a business, has had an incident or an event relating to their computer or their computer system. And that incident or that event, kind of the normal thing that we hear about in today's parlance is a ransomware attack or a data breach. And so if you think about it from those contexts, from ransomware, a company may be completely shut down and not able to operate on their systems for them to both internally operate and externally to their customer base. And so they get lawyers involved to help them because there's a tremendous number of legal issues and implications involved in ransomware and any other type of cyber incident or occurrence that may happen to a business or an individual.
Okay, that's a lot to digest. So then they come to you and they say, let's say I'm Corporation A and I've been hacked and I can't operate. Then what type of services would someone in your place do? And then define like the other careers that surround that in the legal profession.
Sure. So the first thing that they would do in real time, let's say it was a ransomware attack, is they would say that we can't get into our system. We have our IT professionals working as hard as they can to try to restore access, but the threat actors, the bad people, have demanded that we pay a ransom. And they say, Robert, are there any legal issues that would preclude us from paying a ransom? And so the first thing that happens is with a lawyer, with a paralegal, the support team for a lawyer is you may be tasked with looking at, is there laws or are there rules that dictate whether a company cannot or could pay a ransom if that's their prerogative to move in to get their system restored. So, and it kind of goes from there to then saying we need to bring in cybersecurity experts from outside of our company. We've got contracts that we need reviewed right away. Can people from your team help us review the contracts that have been provided to us by these vendors that we need to bring in real time? And time is of the essence to look at to help us try to solve this immediate problem so we can get back online. And then when you look along the continuum of time, there may be a situation where much later in the instant they say, okay, it looks like it may have impacted the personal information of a number of our employees or our customers. Do we have any requirements in state or federal law where we have to provide notice to people? And if we have to provide notice, what do those notices have to say? How do we send them out? Kind of what's the protocol for doing those things? And is it different in the state of Florida than it is in the state of North Carolina and in the 50, states in our country. So, and then there's many steps in between there, but that would be a common number of legal issues in the event of a ransomware attack or in the event of a data breach. And I can then pivot to a situation that's happening every day to a number of people in our community. And that's where a person may have been involved in a situation where they might have been scammed by a cyber actor, and the cyber actor may have actually misappropriated some money from them through their bank account or through something relating to their computer or their computer system. And one of the first calls the victims will often make is to their lawyer to say, what kind of legal recourse do we have? Do we have legal recourse as it relates possibly to the other person whose computer was implicated? Do we potentially have legal recourse as it relates to a financial institution that may have been involved in the situation? And then, kind of in the middle of all this, they may say to the lawyer, can you also look at our insurance policies and tell us, to the extent that we've suffered a loss here, lawyers and paralegals, we'd like you to thoroughly review our insurance policies to see if we have the ability to make a claim for insurance.
Well, it sounds like you can hire a lot of people, from the paralegals to investigators to younger attorneys. I would say people who are early in their career for cybersecurity. Your area must have just, I can't imagine how vast it's grown over the past decade. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. That this area, again, 10 to 15 years ago, was a very, very small area in the law where there were very few practitioners that were really involved in this area. And over the last decade or so, there's been so many cyber-related issues that have occurred that there's really a tremendous amount of work out there for people all in the legal profession, whether it be investigators, whether it be paralegals, whether it be lawyers, that there's that work out there for them to do. And it's still very early in the cybersecurity kind of legal framework in our country. So you're still involved in the ground floor where there's really not a lot of cases that dictate, well, in this situation, this is how a court may interpret it. So one of the interesting things about cybersecurity law is that a lot of things that are happening today are things that are very novel issues that come in front of a court, or very novel issues between businesses that people throughout the legal spectrum have to help to analyze and provide advice to their clients about where they may fall on that legal spectrum.
It's really exciting what you're talking about, because my mind is just wandering to consulting afterwards, because, they come to you for, an immediate issue that you resolve, but I imagine it has long-lasting implications from their corporations, and in some cases can probably shut them down. Can you talk a little bit about, the statistics, to the extent you're able, about resolution versus, cases where it's just not going to be resolved?
Sure. So again, when you talk about cases, in today's kind of where we are in cybersecurity law, most cases get resolved. And I'll give you an example. The scenario would be where there's what's called a business email compromise. And there may be two businesses that are engaged in a transaction, and one is the buyer and one is the seller. And the buyer is going to be paying some sum of money to the seller. And so they exchange wire instructions over email. Unbeknownst to one party, a threat actor or a bad actor has compromised one of their computer systems, and they send fake wire instructions to the buyer in that scenario. And they say, oh, the wiring instructions have changed, or they just delete the real wire instructions and they make it look like these were the real wire instructions. And there may be $100 or there may be $100 million that were sent to the hacker, as opposed to the real individuals kind of in the stream of commerce. So in the bulk of those cases will typically get resolved by the parties, because no courts have said that in this particular scenario, judges or juries are going to find this party more responsible than others. And so most of those cases get resolved with some type of compromise. but those cases are continuing to evolve and they're being analyzed further and further by the people in the legal profession. Again, the paralegals, the lawyers, the investigators, and they're looking and they're saying, okay, whose computer system was compromised? We need to investigate that. And if it was the other side's computer system that was compromised, then shouldn't they be somewhat more responsible? Then the same group of people, the investigators, the paralegals, the lawyers, will look and they'll say, well, the other person whose computer wasn't compromised, if they got an email and the email looked different or it used language that wasn't typical for what they were normally seeing from that sender, should they have been on notice that it wasn't real? And maybe they would bear more responsibility. So again, we're still in the infancy of a lot of these things happening, Kimberly, and it's really fascinating in the court system as these cases work their way through the system towards some resolution, whether that's a compromise or whether it's a jury verdict.
Well, last question, and it's always hard to ask this. I think that people who engage with the law in any way have to learn to love it. So you seem to have a lot of joy even just explaining this. Why do you love or like, or why is this a good area of law for people to get into?
For me, this is a great area of the law because it's an area where you can not only be reactive and get involved when an incident has occurred, but importantly for me and for a lot of people that may want to get into it, you can be very proactive and you can say to your clients, hey, listen, these are best practices that I've seen in different companies or that I've learned going to different programs. And these are things that might prevent you individually or you from a company of being a victim of cyber fraud. And for me, it's very exciting. And I believe, regardless of where you are, whether you're the investigator, whether you're the attorney, whether you're the paralegal, that to have something that you really enjoy, you have to say, I'm passionate about it for some reason. And part of my passion is driven by being proactive and working with others and trying to assist them in identifying ways that they can avoid being a victim of these things. Because I tell you, Kimberly, the one thing that's very common and it's really heartbreaking is particularly when individuals become the victim of a cyber scheme or a cyber fraud. And when they don't have insurance proceeds, I hear about these very, very frequently when the people are out some sum of money that is very meaningful to them. And in many cases, they say, gosh, if I only knew or if I only had the warning or the information ahead of time that had I seen these red flags, I shouldn't have done this. So it's really spurred me and what I've done to try to get as much information out to people to say, listen, if you're involved in this type of situation, think about it from this perspective. And I'd love to just give a couple of those, proactive bits of advice if that's okay.
Oh,
Um, so,
absolutely.
so,
I was
so,
just going to say as we close, I have, people who are elderly that I've supported who have fallen victim exactly what you say. And even though it's not the largest sum of money, it's significant to them. So I want to thank you for your expertise. But yes, please share some of those
So,
tips.
so, so in those cases, Kimberly, and I see those very, very often. And I just saw it with a couple that called me in their 80s the other day that had a situation where they were on their computer, they were doing things, they got an email that came, they believed it was from their bank, and they went in, and before they knew it, the somebody was inside of their actual account at their bank. And so the advice that I would give is that you want to trust, but you want to verify. And if you get an email with a link with something that involves your passwords or your financial information, you want to be very, very leery of that. And you want to err on the side of not pressing those buttons, of not opening that link, of not putting the password in. And even though it may say it's urgent and it requires immediate attention, I just say that people should, they should do their ABCs. They should ask a trusted friend before they do something like that. And they should just kind of stop, just slow down. And if something doesn't seem right, they don't do it. They check with a trusted friend or relative. And before they click on anything or they send any money, they either go to the bank branch or they themselves proactively call the bank or the person that they believe is emailing them based on a number that they themselves know. So just be proactive. don't be so trusting in these situations. So for the individual, it's verify. It's trust, but verify. Don't push any link. Don't respond to anything that asks for your financial information, for your PIN, that asks you to open a link you're unfamiliar with. And then from the business standpoint of things, if somebody says that asks you to wire money, even if you're expecting to do it, the best practice is always to pick up the phone and call the company or the person you're supposed to wire the money to, and make sure that you get the right person. And you say, would you please read the wire instructions to me over the phone? And you check to make sure that they match up with what's on the computer screen. And if they don't, then you want to obviously not send it. You don't want to send it out. And then the other advice that I want to give is that if somebody has been a victim of some type of computer episode or incident, you check to see if you have insurance. You might have insurance that will cover it, and make sure that even though you might feel a little bit self-conscious about it, please report it to the authorities and let them know. Let them determine if a crime has occurred, and let them see if there's anything they can do about it from a criminal standpoint, or contact your lawyer and see if they may be able to help you.
Well, we're in a whole new world. I think that you have shed some light on a lot of different issues. Robert, thank you for your time and for what you do to help people. We certainly appreciate it. For more information on the Institute, please go to isps.sbcollege.edu. We have a lot of experts like Robert who talk about individual programs that impact you. Thank you. Thank you, Robert, for your time.
Thank you, Kimberly.